Hello, and welcome back to the Triangle Business Podcast. I am one of your co-stars, Joey Natale, followed by
I'm your other co-star, Scott Moore.
everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today's episode is going to be on your business is being judged before you finish talking. We, I personally experience this a lot, feeling like, how do you make a good impression? Like, how do you show up with your best credibility and things like that? I think a fun question to kick this one off is how quickly do people form impressions of us when we start speaking? I have a lot to say on this, but I'd like to hear your thoughts
I
first,
think they
Scott.
I think they form an impression of us before we start speaking.
I agree. Actually, they do. So, anything else you'd like to add before I share
Uh,
my thoughts?
I mean, this may be unsurprising to anybody who knows me who's listening to this, but one of the things I'm going to say about this topic in general is stop caring so much what other people think of you.
Yeah,
I mean,
easier said than
what
done. Some.
absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. You know what it is?
What
A
is it?
muscle that takes practice.
Well, that's true. I
Very
think,
hard to do at various different stages of business growth. But I would say especially difficult at the beginning.
and life development,
Yep.
I would say for sure. Um, I agree with people make their first impression of you because you have your visual representation. Let's use the example of if you dress up in a nice dress or a nice suit, people are going to think things of you. However, that will immediately either enhance or degrade that visual impression. So you're well dressed. Um, as soon as you open your mouth, because if I was in a full, dress to the nines, if you will, and I open my mouth and I say, "Hi, it's nice to meet you." That'd be kind of weird.
I mean,
Unless I'm a comedian on
I've
stage, it'd
met
be different.
people with vocal patterns that they did not choose for themselves, right? Like I'm going to stick by to some degree like I can think whatever I want to think.
Right.
I don't think they should care a lot about what I think.
Well, also, I want to mention here, like I was giving a silly example, like me impersonating Mickey Mouse.
Uh-huh.
So, like, that's kind of more joking versus alternatively, if I say, "Hey, my name is Joey. It's nice to meet you. It's a pleasure to be
Hmm.
here,"
Oh yeah,
and
for
things
sure.
like that. So, we're talking about a couple things here, which is volume, projection, and also like notice when I started doing that, I looked down. For those of you who are not looking at the video, I was looking down. We naturally do that when we speak more softly. Sometimes we take up less space. So volume, tone, and word choice, essentially. Those are your vocal presentation, if you will. And so, I mean, that's going to convey a lot of things. This is also related to dating in a lot of ways. They say, like, I like to use the analogy, like, let's say you're window shopping and you use a suit or dress or whatever type of clothing, and you're like, wow, I like those pants or that jacket or that dress. And, this is related to attraction. Attraction is like, wow, they're really attractive. I want to talk to them. And you wanting to talk to them is you going into the store. And
Hmm.
so then you look at the price tag and you're like, wow, it's too much or no. This is also in relation to like they say the sexiest, like, I don't know if the brain is a muscle, but the sexiest thing in your body is your brain because attraction gets you in the door, talking keeps them there. Because if they're an idiot, you're not attracted to them at all. You know?
I mean, I don't want to make a blanket statement that says you can't be attracted to someone who is in the terminology we're currently using, an idiot. Like
Well,
I happen to not find that attractive, but other people might be like, somebody that's not as smart doesn't threaten me. That I find that attractive. Somebody who's not as smart, maybe easier to get my way with. Maybe I find that attractive. But I think in the business world, we I do think it's important to display a certain level of confidence.
Hmm.
And um, one of the ways I heard that described is you need to be able to say what you do and then shut up and
Yes.
not defend it. Like the example they gave was like, somebody, so what do you do? Well, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not one of those crappy like ambulance chasing lawyers. Like I do environmental work and I try to make the planet a better place. And I know there's a lot of lawyers out there who blah 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 blah, blah, right? And if you just said I'm an environmental lawyer,
Yeah.
like I mean, they may look at you, they're like, they may say, oh, that's interesting. Can you tell me about what that looks like on a day-to-day basis? Like, you can answer the question, but being able to just with confidence say, this is what I do, keep it short. Like, it took me a while before I was like, I'm a business coach, I'm a career and business coach.
Yeah.
And then how about you, what do you do? But
Yeah.
like, and I'm just having a conversation here. I don't need to like have a whole elevator pitch ready to go every time somebody says, so what do you do? Now if they say, oh, I've been looking for a business coach, I'd be interested in hearing more about what you do. Can
Yeah.
you briefly describe that? Sure. Let's go.
Yeah.
But yeah, the 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 ability to say confidently what you do while also not particularly caring how they react to that
Hmm.
is that is a muscle you're going to want to grow.
That is very true. Absolutely. I when I first began my practice and I would call myself a confidence coach or life coach, I would go in spaces and articulate what I did. I was like, oh, I'm a confidence coach, help you with this and that. And be like, confidence, nobody needs that. Somebody said to my face one time.
Nobody needs that.
Yeah, it's literally what they said to me. And they said, like, nobody wants to pay for that. Nobody has a problem with confidence. Somebody said to my face. This is actually another business coach that said that to my face. And I'm like,
Really?
funny, because literally 95% of my clients all struggle with varying degrees of confidence on particular topics. So, like, that's a
It's
thing.
good that you didn't say that's weird. What a small dick thing to say.
Yeah. Well, this
Like, let's see
person
how
was a
confident you
lady.
really are, right?
So, this person was a lady. So, that would have been weird to say. You're right.
Okay, all right, all right. I said what I said.
I hear you. But like that was the thing. And so I've had other people say to me like, "Oh, you're one of them laugh coaches. What the hell are you going to teach me about laugh, son?" In that
Yeah,
accent, because we live
yeah.
in the South here. And I'd be like, "Oh no, I don't even know how to respond to this." So I'm like, well, you're not for me. But this also brings up a good question, I think, which I've helped a lot of clients with is why do you feel that it's so difficult for us to simply explain, how do I say this? Struggle so simply to explain what people do. I can say that again if you need me to.
Well, I mean, I think it's normal for a lot of what people do to not like for another person who's not in that profession, who's, to not understand.
Hmm.
If somebody's like, I'm a web developer, I'm like, I think I understand a little bit about what that might mean.
Yeah.
Do you design websites or you write code for certain websites, like, but it's normal for me to not know what the hell that means.
Right.
In the same way, if I say, I'm a business coach and somebody's like, tell me more about what that means. I mean, I'm never feeling judged for them saying, can you tell me more about that? If I'm, I mean, and if I was like I've tried to train myself to not really care that much.
Yes.
But it's no, we live in a time like it used to be people are like, So what do you do? I'm a farmer. So what do you do? I'm a blacksmith. So what do you do? Like I'm a cooper. Cooper are people who make barrels, by the way. Like,
Oh,
so
interesting.
if you're like somebody's a cooper, like it's so we get so many of our names from just old professions like that, right? Like,
Oh,
um, and uh, you're like, oh, so you make barrels. Like we lived in a world where a lot of these things were done with your hands, and it was pretty obvious you make barrels because you were putting the hoops on a barrel.
yeah.
And um, nowadays, we live in a world where technology moves incredibly fast. And if somebody tells you what they do and it's not intuitive to you and saying, like, I'm not sure I understand what that means. Can you tell me more about that? Like, I don't think you're ever coming off judgmental or a jerk if you are curious. But if, if somebody's ever like, you know, well, I don't think that's a problem,
Mm,
like your example about confidence. I mean, that's just kind of a dick thing to say. But
yes.
if they want to put their judgment on full display like that, I mean, let them. But I
Sure.
just think that, like, sort of who cares? Uh,
Right.
I don't mean to be dismissive. This is a problem, right? It is absolute, like us worrying about what they think is absolutely a thing that we do.
Right.
I'm going to say here's two things that I will very specifically encourage people to do.
Hmm.
Number one, I say this all the time. I'm not trying to be a jerk about it, but be on time.
Yeah.
Being on time for things, I think, is it gives a lot of, I want to say information, but that maybe isn't correct. Like it results in a lot of assumptions
Hmm.
about you that are probably mostly good. And it's also one of the first things people come to know about you,
Hmm.
right? If I don't, in a one-to-one meeting, I try to be on time. Sometimes I fail, but I try. If it's a group meeting, it's a networking event or something like that, I try to show up a few minutes early,
Hmm.
but at minimum, I try to be on time.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'm not, and I'm the guy sneaking in the door and trying to find a seat while somebody's already up talking. And if you're doing that, it doesn't mean you're a bad person,
Hmm.
but I bet you're feeling a lot more judged in that moment than you would if you showed up at the time the meeting started or a little early. And the other thing besides being on time is walk into every room with an agenda. Like, this is why I'm here.
Yeah. Be intentional about
Yeah.
where you
And
go and
and
what you're up
and
to. I also
then
like to relate that to other things outside business, but to say like, hey, partying's fun, but party with a purpose.
sure,
That's what I
agree.
like. Yeah.
And we talked about this earlier. I'm going away on a vacation,
Sure.
leaving tomorrow, going to Minnesota, going to be
Sure.
hanging out with some friends. We're going to do some gaming. We're going to eat a lot of really good food. We're
Hmm.
going to swim in Lake Superior.
Wonderful.
My A big part of why this trip is so important to me every year is because I relax.
Hmm.
And at a lot of other things I go to like this, I'm not relaxing. I mean,
Hmm.
it's go, go, go. I'm doing stuff. And that's great. I'm being intentional about it there too. But on
Hmm.
this trip, I am there to relax, which means if somebody's like, hey, we were thinking about playing this game. And I'm like, I'm just thinking about taking a nap, right? I could sit there and go, well, what will they think of me if I don't play that game? Or if they're like, we really need a fourth player for this,
Hmm.
could you please do this? And me, but like, what will they think of me? Well, first of all, they're my friends, so probably if I say I really need a nap right now, they're not going to think I'm a jerk for that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to know at the end when Sunday rolls around, I'm going to know whether I had it happen or not about relaxing. But I'm
Yeah.
coming with my own agenda, and
Yeah.
I think you can walk into any space and be like, this is what I'm here to create.
Yes.
And if I am successful in doing that, people can think whatever they want to think about me.
I agree. I want to come back to the thing about why it's people struggle to simply explain what they do. And my 2 cents on that is I coach a lot of people who started their business and they want to say they help everything and all things.
Yeah.
They save the world. And arguably, you, according to them, and a lot of business I met, you can. So, like, let's use coaching for an example of like, can I coach people on almost anything? Yes. Yes, I can. Can I consult? No, because that's different for those who don't know. That would require me to have expertise and experience already in that area, which I do not need for coaching. However, if I show up to a room and say, like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I coach everything and everyone. Who do you want to talk to? Everyone. Are you going to remember me? No, at all. And so that's a, a wide version, but some people like, oh, I help people with health and I do this. And I also do communication and speaking coaching. And then I also help people with ADHD. Well, now people like to call me Andy because I do this and this and this and this.
Andy does
And
those
that's
things.
not,
Nice.
you don't want to be Andy. Nothing wrong with anybody named Andy, just to be clear. In this example, because it's not helpful because it's not sticky and memorable. Somebody once said to me, like, sell people what they want, give them what they need. Because
Yeah.
sometimes they don't always know the deeperness of what will actually solve the thing that they do want. And so um, I think that's very hard for people because they get stuck in their what I like to call expert language. Like, well, I know that you're having this problem with ADHD because you're actually self-sabotaging yourself and you're not being kind to yourself. And they're
Yeah.
like, what do you mean? That's not true at all. I'm like, I just can't seem to be on time for work. I'm like, yeah, because you're staying up too late and procrastinating because you feel like you're what's known as win the day. It's a whole nother conversation. Or excuse me, revenge on the day. Revenge on the
Mhm.
day is when you feel like you didn't get any time to yourself to recharge. So you're like,
Yep.
screw it. I'm going to sacrifice sleep to revenge on the day, if you will, which is a whole nother conversation. So like I think it's a complicated thing of like branding and marketing question about that and also articulating to make sense. And I think talking to humans is the best way to get the feedback. Because they'll say, I'm curious. I'm like, does that make sense? If they don't say that, they'll be
I-
like, yeah, sure, or no. So that one's a big one, which goes into like, elevator pitches and things like that. Essentially,
yeah.
like I always like to say, like when you go out into the world, whether it's for career coaching or business coaching, your job is to help the people you're talking to as much as you can so they can help you.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean, uh, I think that this is probably a topic for a whole other podcast, but
sure.
but coming into every conversation with the idea of like, how can I create the most value for the other person?
Yes. Yes.
Right. I It doesn't mean that you're never receiving,
Hmm.
but I mean, you're just a recently accepted into a BNI group. Whole philosophy is givers gain, right? So show up ready to give
Yes.
in a variety of areas, and you'll probably get back plenty.
Sure.
Um, um, I think one of the things about this topic about judgment is, I mean, first of all, we do it to other people,
That's what a first date is,
and
or a first
and
interview.
and I do think it's like important to work on elevating yourself out of judgment. I think it is a worthwhile personal development project to think about, like notice when you're being in judgment of somebody else,
Hmm.
and to work on, like, how do I elevate out of that? How do I stop that?
Mm.
Because I think at a minimum it'll let you imagine that other people could be doing that to you when you drop your fork on the floor and you think everybody in the whole restaurant is looking at me. Like, no, people drop their forks on the floor all the time, and it's probably not a big deal. But that I am a big fan of saying, like, I think most of the time, most people think about themselves.
Yes,
And I
they
don't
are.
mean that in like a they're bad wrong for thinking about themselves kind of way.
Yes.
I think most of the time, most people think about themselves. And so us imagining that everybody's going around judging us isn't very useful. I mean,
Hmm.
how often are you judging yourself? Like that's probably what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, does it do us any good to think they could be judging me right now?
I think, through stages of development in life, we are all selfish as little children because they are. And like, there's this expression that used to say, like, what's in it for me?
Yeah,
It's in it.
yeah. What's it? What's in it
It's
for
like,
me?
so like I University or I Radio or something like that. There was
Mhm.
an acronym I'm blanking out right now, who, they think of themselves. And like, what I've been learning through my own journey is that like, if you are in a profession that you're helping people, serving people, you think about more than yourself, or if you're in a relationship with friends or romantic partners. And the more the focus is on you, the less likely you'll keep higher quality friendships or deepen, I guess, the friendships and romantic relationships. So,
Sure.
like, we have these habits of like, I want to look good, I want to make a good impression, I want to come off professional. I think that's also fueled by, I think, more of our parents' generation of you have to look extremely polished and nice and hold to a level of standard of excellence, which is not true anymore. But it depends on, that's not true. It depends on the setting. So if you're in a corporate setting, yes, you have to play the look pretty, be nice game, meaning look like well dressed game.
Depends on
That's
the
more of,
corporation, but
true, but like it's more of a well dressed kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with being well dressed versus like trying to be as perfect as possible was my experience of kind of more older generations ways of business where like today I'm thinking mostly social media honestly when I think of this topic of just like getting on your gym clothes and actually being sweaty and make a video is like, well, this person's real versus like polished bullshit. So
yeah.
authenticity is really the word I'm looking for here.
Well,
Kind of,
like that, I think is is really important. Um, I've told the story on here before about the lady who came up to me and told me that I didn't look like a business coach
yes,
because I wasn't wearing a suit and tie.
yes,
And and for those of you that have not heard the story before, I responded to her by saying, "Did you hire any of the business coaches that you met before?" And she said
hmm,
no. And then I said, "I'm going to go get a beer," and pretty much just like her feedback on how she thought I should appear was of no consequence to me to begin with, but it was especially of no consequence when I found out, like, well, you weren't hiring those people that you did think looked like they were supposed to look. So why would I continue this conversation?
yes,
But I think it's important to be authentic in like if a um life insurance person showed up at a networking meeting and they came off like, they're wearing like gym shorts and a tank top. And I felt like they're doing it to like, I'm not like those other guys. I'm not like those other life insurance people. Look at me. Look how casual I am. If that came off as inauthentic, then uh, I, whether I like it or not, I'm probably making a judgment about whether I trust that person, whether I'd want to do business with that person.
sure.
If they showed up like that and they're like, I come here like straight from my workouts. The only way for me to fit this networking meeting in is to have it right then. So this is how I look, and it's fine. I like. I might be like, cool. Like I can respect that you get to have it all. You get to have your workout and you get to come to this networking meeting. And
Right.
I'm not uptight about whether you're in a suit and tie or not. But
Mm,
that concept that trying to fit in
mm,
is in direct opposition to actually belonging.
yes.
I think it's so important. And I think if you feel like I belong here, then you'll be fine. And if you're like, I am working so hard to fit in here, you're probably going to get judged all the time because you're going to appear inauthentic.
Yes. And I think even if like there's a fine line of like being authentic and showing up as yourself. And if your authentic self is like you're an asshole,
Well,
yeah, that's
in
different.
transformation, we say there's no such thing as authentic asshole because nobody's really really like that. Asshole is always a response to something else that is a problem.
True. And some people don't know that.
Maybe I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying
Well,
that's a point of view about it.
I like that point of view, and I've forgotten that one, but it's a good one, frankly. And so like if you're, let's use the extreme example here to finish the thought, is if you're like, oh well, I just like, jab people jokingly and with my words and just kind of rag on them all the time. I'm like, well, do you know them? You don't know them? Okay, cool. I mean, I personally don't like condescending sense of humor when you don't know people and you've just met them. I'm like, that's kind of not cool for me. And so it's going to kind of turn me off. So, like, if that's your authenticity, then like maybe hold back on that. Like, don't put people down as a joke. Like, I would consider that person to be an asshole. However, if you need to be like a little more polite, I think that's different. And kind of what we're saying here is like if you show up as yourself, not the extreme example of like you're kind of an asshole and you're still being judged, well, you did your best. And clearly, maybe that's a sign that this isn't the right room for you,
Maybe.
which is
I
belonging,
think
which you kind of
you're
said.
bringing up what I consider to be another important piece of this puzzle,
Yes.
and that is who has the right, right? Like, who has the right to judge us? I can hear some wheels turning in people's heads about religious answers to that.
Yes.
But I would submit that people with whom we have real connected relationships,
Hmm.
instead of thinking of it as judgment, I would say who has the right, who has earned the right to give you feedback.
Hmm.
If I'm sitting at a table anywhere and there's somebody who's negging everybody at the table
Hmm.
and I've just met them, I probably don't think very highly of them.
Hmm.
But if I got to know them a little bit, I might say, "Hey, are you open to some feedback?
Hmm.
I care about you, and I've noticed you tend to give people these little cut downs and then laugh it off.
Hmm.
And are you aware that you're doing that?
Hmm.
And are you sure they're okay with that?" And because like it makes me uncomfortable to see that as your default and maybe only way of interacting with a group of people.
Okay.
And so like they can react to that however they want, but if I'm delivering that feedback because I care about them
Hmm.
and also because I care about the other people sitting at the table,
Hmm.
you know, I know that I'm doing my best in trying to support them in like at least raise that awareness. Um, and so I think I guess this is another area that I address this judgment question from is I don't feel judged by anybody that doesn't have the right to judge me. Like they don't know me.
Hmm.
This is the if there's this is the first time they're meeting me. Um, Especially in a business context. I'm like, well, I mean, ask around. I'm
Yeah.
not that hard to get to know, and other people will have opinions, good, bad, ugly, whatever those opinions are. Talk to those people.
Yes. You will be the villain in somebody's story
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes. And that's hard, I think.
yeah. I
That's
don't know.
the
Do you have any
difference with
final
judge.
thoughts on this one?
Well, I guess here's a fun question is, uh, well, final thoughts wise versus the closing question I'll say is, I think it's really important to pay attention to the rooms that you are keeping yourself in, whether it's
Yeah,
friends or professional. I think it's really important. Like, do you feel like you're constantly trying to win their approval? Do you
Mhm.
feel like you're trying to constantly win their approval, one, to just be accepted, or win their approval to stay like at the top, like you're the queen bee or the king, if you will. Those are two
Sure.
different things, but still kind of the same mechanism. Um, and when you are kind of your more authentic self, like, do people tend to not want to be around you as well? Like being polished and professional, I think, is a very good skill to practice, but I don't think that should be the only skill you practice when you speak, either on stage, podcast, elevator pitch, or talk to humans. And like this kind of goes into a longer conversation of taker mentality of just like be curious, be interested, be connected, rather than just like, oh, you don't want to buy a house? Well, I don't want to talk to you. See you later. If you were a real estate agent example,
Sure.
versus
This,
like,
you know what this brings up for me. I will give this is my closing thought on this. I think it is a smart practice to put yourself intentionally in rooms where you know that you are in some fashion below the average. Like that, being around people who are quote unquote better is the the one of the most reliable ways to elevate. Like,
yes.
what are those people doing that I'm not doing? What are they talking about that I'm not talking about? What are they thinking about that I'm not thinking about? That's a good idea.
Hmm.
But if you show up as a learner instead of holding yourself small,
Hmm.
like you're all probably judging me right now. If you show up like I'm here to learn, I'm here to ask questions, I'm here to be curious, I'm excited to be around a group of people that I
Hmm.
think are operating at the level that you are.
Hmm.
It doesn't your not being at their level doesn't cause them to judge you. It actually probably cause a lot of endearment to them because they're like, I remember when I was at the stage of the journey that you're on.
Yes.
So, yeah. Anyway, that just came up for me when you were saying that, and I was like, oh, that feels really relevant to this.
It does. I agree. And on that note, thanks for listening, everybody. If you like what you hear, give us a follow, subscribe, comment, tell us what you love, hated, and join us. We love to have you as a guest. Till next time,
See you.
everybody.
Yeah. Hope to see you soon.
Bye.